AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
Welcome to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast series, where we profile those who have overcome or those who are in the process of overcoming any life topic. We have three objectives with this podcast series. Our first is we want you to know that irrespective of whatever life topic you may be encountering, there are others who will help you through this life experience that you have. We are in this together and we want to help you through whatever life situation you are experiencing. Our second objective is we want you to know there are multiple solutions to any life topic. As we think into and think through any life topic, we can determine that there are actually multiple options that are available to resolve whatever it is you're encountering. Our third objective is if you're experiencing a life situation that is a result of a decision that if you had a life redo, you would make a different decision. We want to help you with critical thinking skills such that we can help you determine the facts and factors that are involved in making an informed decision. I'm Ron Cooper, founder of the Cooper Culture. I'm with my wife and business partner, Marty. The Cooper Culture is sponsoring this podcast series. We have with us again Kathy Kasten for the fourth episode of her podcast. And today we're talking about distractions. And Kathy has been through several aspects of her life, and she has overcome what are potentially many distractions. Marty, what are some takes that our listeners can gain from Kathy?
This was a very interesting podcast in that Kathy explained after asking her, she went from corporate to deciding to do her own business. And the process she went through, going home after being so busy and, oh my goodness, it's quiet. And how she mentally worked her way through that. I really appreciate the fact that she said it's okay to feel that way. But you have to realize you need to work through all the process of going from being really busy to now I got to work on my own business. I got to work on what I thought I wanted to do. She mentioned coaching. I do believe in coaching. I do believe that people should try and find a coach that has been where they are, and the coach can help them through all the process of changing your world. And Kathy explained her coaching business, and it seems to be a really good coaching business and a good process to take. I recommend a coach.
One of the things that Kathy addresses very clearly is distractions, and the contrary to that is focus. Have a focus. And it's difficult to focus on something if you're hung up on something of the past, and that is where the coaching can help you overcome any distractions from the past, any inhibitions you may feel, such that you know exactly who you are, how you're wired, how you proceed. Let's listen to Kathy and what is a very informative podcast. Hi, Kathy. Welcome back to the Overcomers Overcoming podcast. For those listeners who may be joining us for the first time, we have Kathy Kasten coming back to us with episode 4. And we encourage our listeners to listen to Kathy's episodes 1, 2, and 3, where in episode 1 she discussed the very tragic loss of her mom. She, just the day before that loss, gave tribute to her mom. Then we talked about legacy in the second podcast. The third podcast, pivoting. And so a very appropriate topic, that how do you pivot after having experienced everything that Kathy has? Kathy, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Let's talk about, and I think it's advancing the other 3 podcasts, but I am observing some people, and I'm not trying to suggest that you should or you do, but I'm observing some people who seem to be easily distracted. That is, they lack focus. It may be a matter of lacking a life purpose, but I know for a fact there are some people who chase the proverbial shiny object, and whatever the latest thing is they hear about, they chase after it, and it may or may not align with the life purpose. But do you have any observations similar to that, Kathy?
I do. I spend a lot of time with businesses and coaching clients and doing master class work, and I have seen repeatedly across all of those areas that people really get overwhelmed and stuck. That's one of the biggest issues for not being able to move forward in your life. And I've found a number of different reasons. You alluded to one of them, and that was the oh shiny. We call it the oh shiny syndrome. I also call it oh squirrel sometimes, because there's something new out there that can really grab us and pull us away. That's one of the areas I see. I also see people getting stuck in perfectionism, where if they can't do it right, they're not going to do it, so they don't do anything. Another big one that I see is the what if. I call it the what if syndrome, which is what if this doesn't work? What if something bad happens? What if? And because of that, they become really paralyzed about taking those next steps. And the problem with what if is, until you actually take a step, you're never going to have the answer. And I'm certainly not talking about standing in front of a moving vehicle to see what happens. I mean, there's some sense to be applied to this. But a lot of times, what if my boss doesn't like what I have to say? What if this event doesn't turn out the way I want? Well, you're never going to know the answer to that until you try it. And once you try it, you have definite answers that you can go back and learn from. If it worked, great, and you can learn from that. If it didn't, you can say, okay, what did I try that I would do differently next time? It allows you to keep moving instead of being stuck at the railroad tracks trying to decide if you should cross it. So that's another one I see. Fear of failing, that's another big one where people are afraid they're going to be embarrassed or, have a loss of relationship or something like that, where the fear is so strong they don't really want to leave it. And it controls them. They stay there. Sometimes it's outside of issues, as we've talked about in the other podcasts. Life happens. My mother's death was completely out of my control, and so those can really throw us off course as well. And then I think another one that I've thought about a lot lately, I work with a lot of high achievers, and I see a lot of burnout and overwhelm. Either they've tried so many things at such a high level that they're exhausted, or most of the things they try they're pretty good at, and so they want to do all the things today, and pretty soon they're just overwhelmed. I think about the gerbil wheel often. We can hop on a wheel and run as hard as we can all day long, but we might not be going anywhere. And so for me, that's one of the images I have in my head of when people get stuck. So that's kind of my first thought.
No, I think that's a great observation, Kathy. Curious, is there maybe a combination of a lack of focus? I think what I could read into part of what you said, and I'm not sure it's true with the overachiever mindset, but the ones who are what if, I'm not sure I want to move forward with, I'm going to continue to analyze this. Is there maybe a lack of confidence such that, well, if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to quit kind of thing? For the listener who can identify with any of the list of things you said, can you help us through all of these shiny object syndromes and how to have focus, purpose, and so forth?
Sure. I think one of the things that can be hard, and I definitely think a lack of self-confidence can play into that as well. I heard a quote, and I'm sorry I can't remember who to contribute it to at this moment, but the comment was, what you've done got you to where you are today. And I think about that all the time. If you want to change where you are, if you're not happy where you are, then doing what you've always done is going to get you what you've always gotten, right? everything that you've done to this point brought you right here. So what that says to me is, in order to step out of right here and right now, I have to do something that's different. And so the first thing I would say to people is, and this is one of the first pieces of advice I give to my coaching clients, is that you have to be ready to be uncomfortable, and you need to embrace that. You need to expect it. Because we're on this shore, and we're looking across longingly maybe at this island we want to get to, but it's really safe on the shore we're on. Well, we're never going to get to the island until we put a foot in the water or get a boat or, get a plane and fly over there, whatever it is. We need something to move us. And for a little while, that change is uncomfortable. It always is. And we've done those changes all of our lives. The first steps you've taken, the first time you learned to eat, just think of all those changes you've gone through in your life. And they're always uncomfortable when we begin, but pretty soon they become just an accepted normal, a new normal in our life, if you want to call it that. And so embracing the fact that you're going to be uncomfortable and not running from that, but welcoming it, because that says, I'm ready for a journey. I'm ready for a new chapter. I'm ready to try something different that's going to take me to a place different than where I am today. And I think that's the very first step that I really like to encourage people with, is to recognize and embrace change is exciting. And if we take it in tiny steps, it can really be life-changing. So that's the first thought I have.
I think that's a very valid thought, but for the listener who says, I hear what you're saying and it sounds right, but of all the world of possibilities, I don't mind trying something, but would you help that person focus on their strengths, their passions, if they're faith-based, their spiritual gift? Is that a way to help focus on venturing out into something different but not so wild that it doesn't align with your strengths?
Boy, that's just a great, loaded, packed question. So I'm going to try to unpack it the best I can. The first comment I would make is one of the very first things I do with coaching clients. We do a deep dive into their priorities. I am a person of faith, and so I believe that the Lord put gifts into every single person, and that each of us are created exactly for the time and the place we're in, because we're the best person to fill it when we're living our gifts out. So I want to work with my clients to help them think about what gifts were they given. We spend time looking at that, go through some personality, looks to figure out what kind of natural wiring we have as personalities. Are we good at tasks? Are we good with people? Do we love to be out and about? Do we want to stay home and be more reclusive? Those are hints to get us started to think about where our gifts might be. Then we identify priorities in their lives, and I actually have a form that I have them walk through with me, and we talk about what are the top priorities in your life. And I keep these pretty big topics. So, for instance, for me, three of the top ones for me are faith, family, and serving others. Those are big topics. For other people, it might be, I love education, I love nature, I love working with my hands, I enjoy reading and writing. There could be all kinds of just general topics. So starting to think about what is it that you really enjoy, and looking at that in a bigger picture can help you. And then we do a gift sheet as well, and I encourage them not only to look internally, but also to go out to people in their life that are closely connected to them and ask them, and I've done this myself, what are my gifts? What do you see in me that you think is something that really makes a difference? Because honestly, there are times I've gotten responses to that question that have surprised me. I think our natural gifts sometimes are hard to see in ourselves because we just think they're easy and that everybody has them. And so it can be really helpful not only to look inside yourself and think about the answers to those questions, but also to ask people either in your church or in your family or in your business, what do you see that I bring to the table that's a great gift? And those pieces, then we start to put together to talk about, are you in the right place and the right fit? Some of the coaching clients I work with have been in the wrong type of a position for the gifts they have. And over time, that's exhausting, frustrating. It burns you out because you're doing something that maybe for a while you can handle, but if it's not recharging you, eventually you run out of energy and steam and you get tired. So that's one thing we look at. Sometimes it's because of a certain personality. How do we adjust our personality in the situation we're in? Maybe the job is okay, but we're not good at communicating with our boss, for instance. So how do we learn to communicate more effectively with them to express what we're feeling and thinking? And sometimes that's enough to really take a new step. So those are three pieces that I start with: the priorities, the gifts, and the really thinking about. I actually have my clients go through and number those priorities as well. What is your top priority? So for me, number one is faith. And why that matters to help you in finding focus is, even once you determine where your gifts are, or at least some areas that you might think are your gifts, there are going to be times when you're going to have two or three things that come to you that are all wonderful and can really be fun. And how do we decide in that moment? How do we not get overwhelmed when we have multiple opportunities? For instance, when the year that my mother died, the month after she died, we had planned to take a family vacation. And that's a high priority for me. Family is number 2 on my list. However, when Mom died, now I have a situation where I have to choose between two things in the same priority group, staying and helping my family sort through things or taking the vacation. That's when having thought through those priorities ahead of time can really help you in those, what I call why moments, where you're at a crossroads, because they can help you to identify. I mean, clearly there was no question for us, based on our priorities, that the vacation was going to wait. So identifying those things that are your gifts and figuring out what is, when your life, and we talked about this a little bit in Legacy, when your life is done and you leave something for others to remember you by how you've lived, what do you want that to look like? What are the priorities that you want to make sure you focus on so that they actually have that experience with you and it's not a would-have, should-have thing? So does that help? That's kind of a first place where I start.
Yeah. Kathy, I want to ask you, maybe go back to when you first started going from like the corporate world into this. You've decided you're going to do something completely different. If you did go through the what-ifs, if you did go through the scare moments and things like that, could you explain to our listeners what you went through first, changing completely career opportunities?
Sure, that's a great question, Marty. I've had, as we discussed in the pivot section, I've had a lot of pivots in my life. And I would not be real right now if I weren't telling everyone that there are moments when I am like a deer in the headlight, right? You have that moment of, oh, my goodness, what have I done? I remember walking out of corporate life and thinking this is the last day I'm going to be in this office. Now, I could have gone back. They asked me to come back. But still, it was a decision I'd made. And there was a period of time, and I would say to people listening, expect this. In every single transition I've made, there is a period of, I don't know if I want to call it shock. That might be a little strong, but just a moment of reflection. And I remember, as an example, when I left my corporate job, I was in a very active role there. So most of the 1,200 employees in the division I was in knew me, because my photo was in a lot of places and I was involved in a lot of events where they would see me. I went home and I was really, I guess, literally in shock. My phone didn't ring for like 3 months. I was used to having people constantly stopping by my office or, talking with me at a meeting or after a meeting. It was a huge shift. It takes a little while to get your ship kind of centered again and relaxed to say, you know what, this is okay. I made this choice. I need to expect that there's going to be some adjustment period. I think for everybody listening, you can understand that when you leave high school. There's this adjustment period where, okay, I'm out in the real world now. What does that feel like? And it's really strange not to go to class and not to see all of your friends every day. And, we have those in our life. We have to accept and embrace the fact that there will be an adjustment period. And we may, have a struggle with that for a little bit and just be okay with that struggle. I certainly have had it. Honestly, I probably struggle a little bit every single day. I think when you want to grow and be uncomfortable in order to get to a new place, that discomfort just becomes almost a normal part of your life. And I'm learning as I'm getting older to embrace that and welcome it and not to be so frightened by it, because it tells me that I'm taking steps. It's still hard. I still some days don't love it, I will be honest, but I think it really can be exciting because it opens up these horizons that I didn't have possible before.
Because I can see that with us, a new step, a new accomplishment, when you're in that scared type of situation, just helps you, reinforces, yes, I am doing the right thing.
Yes. And, one of the things that's really been a help to me with that topic too, Marty, is looking at failure, because I think one of the reasons those steps are so scary for us is because of the fear of failure and because, what if this is a terrible idea? And I don't advocate running out and spending $1 billion to try something new. I'm not talking about being irrational. But I think when you take those little steps and you have that fear, one of the things that really helped me was a cycle I learned, and I think this was through the John Maxwell team. They were talking about a cycle of growth, and it was test, fail, learn, improve, re-enter. And that really was powerful for me because it helped me to think about failure as just a step in the process, not like the end. It's not like, boom, if I fail, I'm dead. I think sometimes we almost go there where it's like, well, if I fail, the world is going to end, the sun's going to fall out of the sky, everything's going to be terrible. Well, that depends on how you react to the failure. If you take that failure, some of the best growth I've had has been after some really big failures, because I go back and I look at, okay, what would I have done differently? I remember early on when I started my leadership business, I had a situation where I had a really big failure, and someone who was mentoring me asked me the question, when did you know this was starting to fail? And I had been working on this particular thing for several months, and that question really hit me because I said the answer is 2 weeks after I started. And I think that was really eye-opening for me to realize I need to be more in tune with what I'm understanding is happening in that moment. So that was a great learn for me. So, don't expect, I don't want listeners to think there's this euphoric moment where you just leap happily from the thing you're doing to the next thing. It can be hard. It can be scary. It can be lonely. Sometimes people around you may think you're crazy, especially if you're leaving a group. I find oftentimes people that are stuck surround themselves with people who are stuck. And so when you decide to step out of that group of stuckness, they're not going to understand where you're going, and they may want to even pull you back so that they feel more comfortable. So expect that that's going to be a hard time, and give yourself the grace to realize I just have to go through that. It's just part of the process, and look what's coming next. I don't want to spend my entire life in high school. Right, so there's always this wonderful next step, or in college, so it really opens up all kinds of opportunities, but you have to be willing to step out of what you've known to find them.
Right.
Kathy, there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying. Some people have heard the expression, I just feel overwhelmed. I have heard some people say those who are overwhelmed are under-purposed. And that resonates with me personally, that those of us who are prone to activity and that activity is not necessarily productive and aligned with our purpose, perhaps we need to refine and define our purpose. And there are those who feel that, I just don't have enough confidence to pursue something new. But I think what you said earlier about surrounding yourself with people who have your best interest in mind, that as you formulate an idea, you can have other people affirm or dissuade you from the direction that you think you want to go, that includes your strengths, passion, and so forth. Kathy, am I assimilating correctly what you said and perhaps the direction you help take some of your clients to develop focus and purpose?
Yes, I would say, honestly, one of the things that we work on, and I think almost to a client this is true, busyness does not equal success. And we can, especially in this culture, we can cover a lot of things by sounding busy. It makes us sound important. It makes us sound, like we have a lot of people that need to see us or be around us, I think we use it as an excuse sometimes to avoid the things that we really should be doing. So that's one piece I would say to that. The other thing is stepping out and actually thinking about your purpose intentionally is so important, because you have to start to choose the one thing. So what I was going to say about that is that the clients I work with, almost to a person, we spend a great deal of time limiting the busyness. Most people will identify too big of a chunk. For instance, I want to buy a new home, or I want to move to a new home. Okay, that sounds like a really great goal, but it's a really big goal. Let's break that down a lot smaller. So they'll say, okay, I need to think about selling my house. Well, let's break it down some more. And I will keep making them break it down until we get to a tiny step. We've got our goal. So maybe the purpose, as an example for someone, is I want to serve people, which is a very noble goal. And I love that they want to do that, but we need to break it down. So maybe they say, like you and Marty have done, I want to do a podcast. Okay, let's break it down again. How do we do a podcast? What are our possible steps that we can take to get there? Because for someone who's never done a podcast, that can sound pretty overwhelming and can get us in that what-if stuck spot. So now let's break it down again. Okay, I need to find someone who's done a podcast that I can talk to. I need to find a podcast hosting space. I need to think about my guests. There's all kinds of little pieces, and we're going to break and break and break and break and break until we get down to one tiny actionable step that takes you one step closer to starting a podcast. And I think that can be so powerful. I would challenge everybody listening to this, if you are feeling super stuck, it's too big of a piece. So you need to have that purpose clear as to what your gifts and strengths are and where your passion is that the Lord has given you to live out. But then secondarily, break it down over and over and over. I have found I'm a super big goal, big dream person. I used to often choose really big goals, and I have found personally that as I have torn things down into tiny little actionable steps, I am getting farther faster than when I had one great big goal. Because I think, I can go online and look up a list of the top podcasts, right? That's one tiny step I could do. That seems achievable to me, but saying, Kathy, go build a podcast, all of a sudden I'm saying, well, where do I start? How do I do that? And it can just really get us stuck. So I hope that helps, but that's a place where I would say with the purpose coupled with tiny steps, that can be super powerful.
Nope, I think that's great, Kathy. Talk to us about the person, the term overachiever. Some of us may think of that as, hey, I conquer, I achieve everything I take on. I'm really curious, your perspective in the context of busyness. Are overachievers the busy people with activity, and they look at a list of activities, accomplishments, and that kind of thing as, well, look at all I've done, but yet there's not as much productivity in that amount of activity as could be? Is that partly a definition of overachiever?
Super question. I would say this. When I'm thinking about overachievers myself personally, those are the people that, and I think we all know them, the people who it seems like whatever they touch is successful. Usually they have really long, impressive lists of things that they've accomplished. Of course, you're not seeing all of the failures and the struggles, but I think that, I'm talking about the view that other people have of them. They are the people maybe with many degrees behind their name, or they've been featured on, 86 television shows, or whatever. I mean, things that a lot of us would think are kind of out of reach. But what I find is that, first of all, people who have had a lot of success have had also a great deal of failure. And people will forget to look at that. And hopefully if you talk to a high achiever, they will tell you that. The other thing that I find is high achievers have very high anxiety, because they constantly struggle with reaching this perfect state, which none of us are able to do in this life. And so they're constantly trying to reach a state that's not possible. And also because they can enjoy a number of things at a high level. They can be, oh, squirrel, oh, shiny very quickly, where they have 12 things they'd like to do. How do I choose which one? And all of a sudden they're paralyzed. So for me, that high achiever part is more the perception of others about them, that they seem to be this person who everything they touch turns to gold. And again, I would say that that's perception. And every one of those people, I mean, you don't have to look beyond Hollywood or sports to see, you know, family struggles and all kinds of things. So people who look like they've been successful high achievers still are flawed human beings with struggles, and we all have those.
Putting all this together, how would you, the starting point for a person who says, well, I'm stuck, I'm just not sure, all these, it is where I want to go with life and so forth. Would you suggest that a person, and you mentioned earlier, perhaps define your strengths, personality profile, how you're wired, and then just surround yourself with a circle of friends? Is that a way to get a new focus and get a new start on life?
I think so. When I work with clients, the very first thing I have them do, I will not work with a coaching client until they've taken a personality assessment with me. And the reason I do that is because I want to be able to communicate to them in a way that's helpful to them and really reaches them where they're gifted. And so that's the place I start to save us time and energy. I want to be able to understand some of their natural, what I would call hardwiring that the Lord has put in. But then beyond that, to get really clear, many of my clients have never sat down and thought about what does matter most in my life. So get out a piece of plain white paper and draw a few circles on it maybe, and put your name in the middle and write out 6 or 7 things that really matter to you. If life were really short and you had 3 months to live, what are the things in life that really matter to you? Those are start places. But I would also say we don't always know what our gifts are. The Lord knows them, and He's built them in. But I will say in my own life, there have been a few times when I thought I didn't have a gift in something. It would never have gone there if the Lord hadn't taken me there kicking and screaming. And then I've discovered, wow, I really love this. So be open if someone comes to you with something that you didn't expect them to say as a gift, to trying it and being okay with if you step in there and it doesn't work. It's okay. That has given you clarity that this particular thing is not something that I'm passionate about or I'm not interested in. That's a lot better than sitting in the what-if space. So, you know, sometimes just stepping through a door or through a window or trying something or going to an event that you maybe have toyed with in the past just to taste it, kind of like a taste testing at a restaurant, right? You're just taking a little bite of the food to see how does that seem to you. If you're not sure, that can be a really fun place to start. So that's kind of where I begin with people, is really to get clear on what you're naturally wired with and where your priorities and gifts are. And from there, we start to go in and do a buffet meal where we try all kinds of different things. We may look at different jobs. We may consider different industries. We may talk about, you know, is somebody better at being in front of people doing presentations, or do they prefer to do spreadsheets? Those are both gifts in different ways. So once we can find that and identify it, it'll help them to move forward. And this is something I will say with faith too. If all of this seems overwhelming to you right now and everything we've been talking about on this session seems hard, then I would say to you, pray and ask the Lord to open the doors and windows and put the people in your life that are going to help to. So that's the number one thing I guess I would do first, is pray.
I think there are a lot of listeners who would say, you've given me some hope. You've given me some structure in my thinking. You have given me reason to think that I can begin to think through this and get myself unstuck. I'm going to ask somewhat of a final question on this episode. I'm going to believe, because you mentioned a DISC personality profile, that our listeners could get that through you. Am I thinking correctly?
Yes. I offer those on lioncrestleadership.com. And there are a lot of profiles out there. I will tell people there's a great difference in the companies that offer them. One of the reasons I love the company that I use is they have 39,000 plot points on their graph. Other companies maybe have 4 or 12. So I want something that's going to be scientifically validated, that really helps me to know this is a fairly accurate place to start. And that can be so powerful, not only for revelation for the people who take it, but also for me as a coach and a supporter, to know what really matters and how the Lord made them, and so that we can have a good conversation using the gifts they have and not go down rabbit trails that don't fit them. So thank you for asking that. I love being able to have that conversation, and it really opens the eyes of the people who take it.
I think the next topic we want to engender, and my guess is you would be perfectly suited to talk about energy and recharge. Now that you've got me started and our listeners are focused on what can be, you're helping me get out of my stuck position. Perhaps you can address the topic of being energized and recharged. Can you do that?
I would love to do that. That's a fun topic, so I look forward to it.
Let's just tune in for the next episode on that topic.
Sounds great. Thank you.
How would you assess your life situation? Do you feel stuck? Do you feel that you're just uncertain of your life purpose, just what your strengths are, how you're wired? Do any of those things apply to you? It's possible that you have accomplished some things in life, but yet you're not totally fulfilled. You may need a pivot in your own life. It's possible you feel that I just need to pursue something different that will give me more satisfaction, more fulfillment in life than what I'm doing right now. Coaching is an aspect of helping you through any life challenges, any inhibitions you may have. We are very aware that those things that are in the subconscious can be inhibitors to keeping you from performing at your peak potential. We know there are things from the past, there are things that have happened to you that can be inhibitors to having you function at your full potential. We know that sometimes life failings, different things that have been said to you, can be distractions, and we can let those things take us off track. Coaching is one thing that can help overcome and identify those inhibitions that, when identified, we can correct those things that are keeping you from being at your performance. Yes, it's very common to be stuck in life, that with the help of a coach, you can help determine your life purpose, your strengths, how you're wired, just who you are. We want to help you with that. We want to help you overcome any life challenges you may have and help you determine exactly what it is you want to do as we progress through life, through work experience. There are times that we need to just learn from the past and gain what we have from the past and possibly take on a new future. So we want to help you determine just what it is that you are best suited to do. We want to help you determine just any impacts that are keeping you from determining and progressing where you want to be, but we can help you with that through coaching. We hope that you will engage with us and let us know of any life challenges you have, any inhibitions that you are aware of either in your life or possibly those in your circle of influence. Help us to help those to achieve those life purposes and life desires and live a life that is totally fulfilling. We can help you do that through the leadership training that we do as well. Marty and I are life coach certified. We are also DISC personality certified, and we know that the two in combination, to know your strengths through your personality traits and how you're wired, along with living a very disciplined life that will help you overcome any life challenges you have. So let's talk together and share some of your experiences with us. Call us at 410-586-1875 or send an email to ron@thecooperculture.com or Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, @thecooperculture.com. And if you would like to contact Kathy Kasten, just let us know, and we will put you in touch with her. We look forward to interacting with you. Let's work together, and we know that the more we work together and share ideas, the greater we will be.
Hey guys, finding the perfect gift for the food lover in your life is easy, thanks to Goldbelly. Goldbelly ships America's most iconic foods, straight from world-famous restaurants right to your door. So if you want to treat someone to Joe's Stone Crab from Miami, Franklin Barbecue from Texas, or desserts from famous foodies like Ina Garten or Martha Stewart, Goldbelly has you covered. Just go to goldbelly.com and for a limited time, get 20% off your first order with promo code GIFT. That's promo code GIFT.